Welcome everybody who's already here. And this is Chris Eisenman, and she's a professionally trained chef. And by the way, I'm Kathy Burlow, but you can't see me. But I'm the founder and president of PDX Veg, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this cooking demo that Chris is doing. And she's a professionally trained chef. And you may have noticed that in the recipes that she shared with us, there was a YouTube video that she had, and she has a whole bunch of these on the Lady Yum Yum show. So you can find a whole bunch of her vegan cooking demos there. And today she's going to demonstrate how to prepare every component of a barbecue jackfruit sandwich. And she's going to answer any questions about this. And also she shared a bunch of other recipes that she can also talk about. And we are recording this, so for anybody who couldn't make it, they can see it later on our website. And Kate figured this out, and the rest of you hopefully will too, that if you have any questions, the way we're doing it is that you can put them into the Q&A, and I'm going to keep looking over there. And so I can then repeat them to Chris, and that way we won't get the acoustics messed up by people unmuting themselves. So I think—
And I love questions. Love questions.
Yes,
so
and Chris is
all at Kathy. Keep her busy.
Yeah, and Chris is great at answering them. And I can vouch that all her stuff is really delicious, because we used to do in-person demos and then we actually got to eat the stuff. And so we're not getting to do that now, but maybe you're cooking along, or if you make what she makes, it'll be delicious. So I guess I'm turning it over to Chris now, and it's all yours.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. As Kathy said, we're going to make barbecue jackfruit. And I have some of the jackfruit in front of me now. I prepared one of the 2 cans. This time I bought it at Trader Joe's. It was really good price at Trader Joe's. It was a little less expensive than the Asian store. I usually buy it at H Mart, but all the Asian markets have it. And the thing I put on the sheet with the recipe that you have to watch is you need to look for the in-brine. So this is young jackfruit or green jackfruit before it ripens. Once it ripens, it gets sweet and almost tastes like pineapple. But before it ripens, it kind of has an almost, it's not artichoke flavor, but a little bit on the artichoke-y kind of side. It's pretty, not bland, but it doesn't have a strong flavor. And so that you can, it's like tofu, you can make it taste like what you want it to taste like, which is really, in barbecue, it's the barbecue sauce. So you can see the texture is very shredded, like, you know, meat would be shredded meat. So I'm going to show you how to prepare it. I've already drained and rinsed what was in the can, and it leaves something that looks like that. This is the jackfruit. Jackfruit is huge. It's like much bigger than a pineapple. You can see them at the stores as well that don't come in the can. And what I'm going to do, it's usually a wedge shape, and this shape, this part down here, just gonna break off. This is kind of hard like an artichoke heart, like the very center of an artichoke. So I just kind of put that aside, and a little more came out. You can see it's very much like artichoke. And I just put that in my discard pile. And then you'll also get seeds. See that? That's a seed. And I put that in my discard pile. Now I use that stuff, but I usually use it in a salad. If I want my barbecue jackfruit to look real professional and like jackfruit, like shredded pork, which of course we don't eat because we love pigs. That's how I do it. Now I'm making this for my family, so I'm using my fingers. If I was making this in a demo where you were going to eat it, I would probably either have on gloves or I'd use a fork to do this, but it's a little quicker with our fingers. Here's another seed. So sometimes the seeds are big, sometimes they're little. These seeds can be roasted also, people like that, but I just throw them in salads. So here I took the end off, and again, I'm just shredding it. Oh, look at the size of this seed. This was really big. So perfectly edible, but the texture isn't what we're looking for this dish. So I just put it here, and I'll use that in a salad. So if you're shredding along with me, this takes just a few minutes. And again, separating it out, I think is worth it because it looks much better. And especially if I'm trying to impress my meat eating friends. I'm going to shred it really nice. So a couple more pieces here. This is like the longest part of the whole thing. Here's like big, huge seed. And then this is that core part, which is kind of fibrous and great for salad, but not for barbecue sandwiches. A couple more pieces in here. So I'm kind of going slow and methodical, but I usually have a podcast on when I do this and it goes really fast. Not that big of a deal. And sometimes you get more seeds. I noticed this Trader Joe's brand definitely felt like it had more seeds than the one I get at H Mart, but you still get a good amount of meat, so to speak. I love when Kathy puts out the PDX veg things on Facebook, and she substitutes, like, instead of saying pig, she puts a cute little pig face there. So that's my favorite part of Kathy's posts on Facebook.
Well, it keeps the pig in the front, that people see what they're saving by eating the jackfruit.
Exactly. And they're so cute and fun. I can't wait till you all get to go out to, if you're doing the challenge and go to the animal sanctuaries.
Yes.
You can meet the pigs and their personalities are so huge.
Yeah, it is so wonderful to see them, and you can even give them belly rubs sometimes.
Oh, belly rubs. Okay, that's all my jack. So you can see it's very, very shredded looking. Oh, there's a seed I missed. So I'll just throw it over here. That looks good. Okay, I'm just gonna rinse off my hands. Okay, so now we're going to make the rub. Just lay that aside. Sorry, there we go. And for the rub, we're going to put a little bit of oil in our bowl and a couple tablespoons. So I can grab a tablespoon here. So this is EVOO. If you don't have extra virgin olive oil, you can just use whatever oil. Or if you don't use oil, a lot of people are whole foods, plant-based, and they won't use oil. You can leave it out. I've tried it that way. It works great too. So it's really a preference. I think when you're first becoming vegan, the added fat is going to help you get used to some of these new flavors and textures. And, you know, there's so much fat in non-vegan food that adding a little plant-based fat when you're first starting out is great. Oh, I forgot to say what I'm doing here. So here I have paprika, chili powder, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and cumin. I get this cumin from Burlap and Barrel. If you've never tried their spices, I highly recommend it. It comes from the mountains in Afghanistan and it's amazing. So, and they do really good work with working with people and giving them a fair wage and stuff like that. So I'm just putting all my spices in with my oil. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sugar. Now, this is the big advantage of doing this with your own spices. And on the notes on the recipe, I said you can get your own barbecue blend, the powder for the rub, and you can get your own barbecue sauce. But getting it from or making it yourself, you can control the sugar and the salt, which are things that obviously we want to cut back on. And I only use a teaspoon of brown sugar in this rub. You know, if you buy rubs, they can be full of sugar and salt. And I'm not putting any salt in here because the brine on the jackfruit had salt. So you don't really need to add a lot. My husband and I were eating this. We tend to not use a lot of salt. We've kind of got used to not using it. And so we avoid it when we can. So I stirred that all up. And that's what I'm going to combine now into my jackfruit. There we go. So let's add that to my jackfruit. And we're going to get this all mixed up really well. So it's not a completely dry rub, although it could be. Like I said, you could Just put this in completely dry and not use the oil if you don't want to use oil. I didn't show you the back of the can, but jackfruit has 40 calories, no fat, and it's full of fiber. It has 7 grams of fiber in a serving, those 40 calories. So it's pretty much just straight old fiber. So
Definitely a lot healthier than pork, right?
yeah, oh my gosh, I can't, the comparison is, there's no comparison. So much healthier and it tastes great. My meat eating friends think this is just as good, literally just as good. Now, you know, lots of places make this. You can make it at home for pennies for what you'd spend going out to a fancy restaurant and getting barbecue jackfruit. So I'm just spreading out the spice as best I can, getting that oil and the spices on all the little pieces of jackfruit. And then I'm going to spread it out and we're going to put this in the oven. Now you could do, I'm just spreading this a little better. You could make this dish by just taking this beautiful jackfruit, mixing it up with barbecue sauce, and it would taste pretty good. But putting it in the dryer, putting it in the oven dries it out, and that's what takes it to a next level, and that kind of restaurant flavor and texture that really is delicious. So I got this spread out nicely now. There we go. And we're going to put this in a oven, which I've preheated to 400 degrees. And it's going to sit in there for about 30 minutes. So let's take it over to the oven. And set the timer. There we go. Okay. So while that is in the oven, we are going to make our barbecue sauce. And this barbecue sauce recipe that I'll be making makes a lot of barbecue sauce, a lot more than we'll use for this one serving of jackfruit. But barbecue sauce is delicious on so many things. I don't mind having extra. I throw some lentils in there and you have a sloppy Joe. So it stays in the fridge at least for a week, 5 days, 7 days, easily. So that's what I usually do. So to start the barbecue sauce, I have a can of tomato sauce, just straight ahead tomato sauce, which I'm going to put in my saucepan here. And need a little spatula for this. Then I have tomato paste. That'll make it extra tomatoey. And again, you can buy barbecue sauce, but it's going to be full of sugar and salt. And this is going to be super flavorful. You can adjust it a little for your liking, and it doesn't have all that salt and sugar that we don't really need. So I like to make my own. Okay, stir that up a little, where that can. Okay, so that's gonna cook in there. And I'm going to add some other spices to that and some vinegar and the rest of the ingredients. So I'm gonna grab the vinegar and the molasses and the Worcestershire from my fridge and the smoke. Okay, here we are with how much vinegar? Oh, ½ cup of vinegar is my first ingredient. And this is apple cider vinegar. But if you don't have apple cider vinegar, white vinegar will work too. I just tend to really like the flavor of apple cider vinegar, so I use it for almost everything. And then the next thing is 1/3 cup of brown sugar. So again, that's quite a bit of sugar, but it's nothing compared to the ones you would buy in the a jar. So my brown sugar is very loose, so I'm just going to do a heaping 1/3 cup and pop that in there. I think the next thing on my list was molasses. and it was a 1/4 cup. Now, I love molasses. It's also in my baked bean recipes. Maybe it's that New England girl in me, you know, Boston and the great molasses flood. I'm just going to eye this and do about a 1/4 cup because it makes such a mess in the cup.
You have to get it out of the cup too. Yeah.
I know, exactly. So that's a little easier. I just do the easy way. The next item I'm putting in there is Worcestershire sauce. Is that on there, Glenn? And this is the Portland brand. Amy or Annie's makes a brand that's vegan. So just look for vegan on the label. Regular Worcestershire has fish in it. So you have to look for a vegan one. Again, Portland, Annie's, and there's like a Wizard one. I forget the name, but Wizard something too. Those are the ones I tend to get. This Portland one's really good. And I need 3 tablespoons of that. Grabbing a tablespoon. There we go. And this adds a lot of complexity. So I highly recommend it. I don't think it would be the same without it. Worcestershire I use in a lot of my sauces because of that umami and that extra complexity that really adds to vegan cooking. So I highly, highly recommend that one. And then some smoke. I'm doing 2 teaspoons because I like it really smoky. Liquid smoke is almost always vegan. I've never hit a brand that isn't, but I always check the label and make sure it doesn't say there's something weird in it. This brand, Wrights, is absolutely vegan. There's another brand that I've seen and used that's vegan. I have not found a non-vegan smoke. They're just made with smoke, not meat. So I'm doing 2 teaspoons because I like it extra smoky. Okay, let me see what else. Oh, a little garlic powder, a little onion powder, and some black pepper. So I like a lot of black pepper. Where's my black pepper? I don't think I put out black pepper. So I'm going, oh, here it is. I love black pepper. So I am going to put more probably than a ½ teaspoon that I put on the recipe because I just really, really like it. But if you don't like it at all, leave it out. That's the other joy of making this yourself versus buying it in a jar. You can make it suit your taste. And then it's funny, before I was vegan, I don't think I used a jar of garlic powder or garlic or onion powder in my life, but it really helps deepen the flavors of vegan food. I think it gives us some of that processed food thing we like about our foods we might have grown up with, but it's completely healthy. It's just, you know, dehydrated vegetables. So what did I put on the recipe? A ½ teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. So there's about ½ teaspoon of onion powder. And a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I just kind of shake that over the top. And then I'm going to stir all of that up in a moment. Do we have any questions out there, Kathy?
Not at the moment. I'm looking here to see if anybody has any.
Okay. I'm going to grab a whisk because those powders tend to kind of lump a little. That's the hardest part here, which is not a very hard recipe. Oh, I got my stove. Oh well. I'm going to give this a little whisk, make sure there's no lumps. And if there are those lumps, as it reduces down, you can always already see how thick it got. Just begun. Okay, I'm going to just give this a little taste. I just drip, oh, need my other spoon. Just gonna drip a little on there. Yeah, that's good. I'd probably put a little chipotle or a little cayenne because I like everything spicy. But that is delicious. And again, that's what you can do when you make this at home. You can adjust it. You want it a little sweeter, you want it a little more sour, you want more smoke. It's all in your hands. So that is all good. And we are just gonna let that simmer. Glenn, if you'd show that, you can see a really slight boil. Perfect. So we're just gonna let that go. Nice simmer there. And again, that will continue to thicken up. So I'm just going to leave that. And while we let that thicken up and our jackfruit in the oven has about 20 minutes, we are going to talk about mayonnaise. So let's go to the blender. Now there's tons of mayonnaise recipes online for vegan mayo. You can buy it. It's commercially available. Trader Joe's has one. Target has one that I particularly like. It's a Good and Gather brand, and it has a good price. And I think the flavor reminds me most of what I grew up with mayonnaise. And Best Foods makes one. So, and then of course, don't want to leave out Follow Your Heart. Vegan-A's is probably the gold standard of mayo, but it is a little more spendy. So those are some of your options. But again, you can make it yourself. And I'm going to give you a few variations. I gave you the recipe online or on Kathy's website. And the first thing you use is silken tofu. And silken tofu comes in a box that's shelf stable. So I use this for all sorts of creamy sauces and things like mayo. So I usually have it in my fridge. I just spilled a little here. Let's keep that waked up. And I'm going to put a cup in this, in my blender. And unfortunately, these come in 12 ounces. So I'm going to have a little bit left over. And I use the leftover. You can measure this in a cup. I'm just eyeing 2/3 of a container would be a cup. The leftover, I often add to tofu scramble. It stays good in the fridge for a little bit, so it's not a big deal. I'm gonna turn down my barbecue sauce, it's boiling. I'll give it a little stir while I'm over here. Ooh, it smells so good in here right now. We need smell-o-vision.
Yeah, we're missing the smells too.
I know, it's so sad. Someday, soon, it's not that far off. Okay, the next thing we are going to add to our mayo is a little olive oil. Now, this is another thing that's optional. I am going to add it, but if you're watching fat or trying to lose weight, you can leave it out. But I think it gives a light, nice mouthfeel. It's most reminiscent of mayonnaise. And the 3 tablespoons of olive oil that I'm using in this big batch is, again, way less than we would use. We would be getting fat if we used, where'd my bowl go? There it is. If we used regular mayo. So it's, and it's olive oil, so it's much, much healthier. And we're going to put a little Dijon mustard in that. Let me grab that. I was gonna say, usually I have Annie's, but you can see Good and Gather. I was at Target recently, obviously. So I got Good and Gather Dijon. And what do I put? Probably a half a teaspoon or so, 2 teaspoons. Mustard actually is part of what makes things emulsify, so that the oil and the tofu helps with emulsification too, but the mustard actually helps everything stick together and not separate out. So highly recommend you use mustard. It also adds a kind of a flavor to the background that makes it taste like mayo, what you think of as mayo. So even if you don't think you like mustard, I would use it in this recipe. And what else goes in there? Salt, little salt. Again, way healthier than what you would do if you were, or what you would be getting if you ate this ate mayo in a jar. I'm just going to use a little teeny, what did I recommend in the recipe? 1/4 teaspoon. It's the 1/8 teaspoon, so I'm going to put 2 of those in there. Just a little salt. And finally, back to my cider vinegar. And we'll put 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar. 1, 2. Now I'm using a high-speed blender of Vitamix, but it's not required for this recipe. It'll work just as well with any old blender. You can use, for those little blenders that people use. I can't think of
Immersion blenders?
Bullet.
Bullet blenders. Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Okay, so let's give this a little blend. Now, tip, put your blender on low, the very lowest setting when you turn it on, and then you'll hear me slowly turn it on or turn it up. When you're making mayo from egg, traditionally, you will slowly put the oil in. You don't have to do that with this recipe. So it's kind of cheap and makes it a little easier to make. So let me turn that on. Okay. Usually double this. My container's a little big, but it'll work. Just putting it back in, just kind of cleaning off the sides. If you double this recipe in this big container, it works a little better. Add volume. I'm just going to add some more of my tofu. Again, I took my speed all the way down. And then I'll bring it up again. And that's how you make mayo. So much easier being a vegan. Like you can make your own mayo, you can make your own milk. It just makes life easier. I remember having to go out and buy milk. What a waste of time. Now I just take a few cashews and some water and I make my milk. And you can see this is beautiful. Can you get in there nice and close? Nice thick mayo. And I thinned it a little bit by adding a little extra tofu because my jar was a little big, but there we go. So we have our mayo made. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's go check on our barbecue sauce. Ooh, it looks good. It's been here simmering. You can see it's getting nice and thick. All the flavors are melding together. And I see my jackfruit has a few minutes left on it. Let's get this all. Combined and nice. It's getting pretty thick. That's a little ways to go. Should be ready right around the same time as my jackfruit. My stove's getting dirty. There we go. We're just going to leave that at that simmer still. Perfect. Okay, so we have the jackfruit in the oven. Actually, let's go check on that. Maybe move it around a little. Let's give our jackfruit a little look. Oh, it's doing really well. So you can see it's getting drier. And it still has a way to go. You'll see it'll brown up more. And you won't get as much steam when it's ready. It might not need the whole 30 minutes. We'll watch it. I'll come back to it in a few minutes to make sure my oven runs a tad hot. There we go. Okay, so we got our barbecue sauce almost ready to go, and I'm going to make my coleslaw next. So I have a bowl of coleslaw. You probably made a million times yourself. No different for vegans. It's just our mayo. We made our own. You could use jarred, and our coleslaw. I usually add a few things. I usually add like dill or whatever I feel like making. Sometimes I add sriracha, or sometimes I add sweet pickle. So I'm just gonna make it plain today. So I'm being lazy. So I got a little coleslaw mix. This is Josie's brand, but you can get coleslaw mix at any store. Freddy's has it. It's just a really quick way to add coleslaw to a sandwich without going through all the effort of shredding your cabbage and carrots yourself. So it's much, much quicker just to buy one of these little bags of it. And I am going to add my mayo. And I won't need all of this, but this is the other nice thing about making it yourself. You can make more. If you want more, you can make half. If you need less, use smaller pitcher. I put a lot of mayo in there. But again, in real life, if I was using real like jarred mayo, that would be like, I would be freaking out because I'd be thinking about all that fat. But, you know, using the homemade, that's really, even though it's quite a bit of mayo and really creamy and delicious, I should have tested that before I used it actually and seen if it needed anything else. But I made this recipe a zillion times and know it works pretty well. So I'm going to add a little pepper because I like pepper on everything. A little dill. I also like dill on almost everything. Maybe a little celery seed since I have it here. Okay, a little celery seed is this last thing. But I like to say when you first go vegan, just make things you're familiar with. You know, something like coleslaw. If your mom or dad or whoever your caretaker was growing up had a certain recipe, you just sub out the part that wasn't vegan, the mayo. It's, you know, it keeps all those familiar things that we like about those foods, those comfort foods especially. You don't have to give them up. You just do a slight modification. So there we go. We got our coleslaw ready. Okay. Fast.
For some reason we're losing our gimbal. There we go.
Sorry,
Okay.
our steady cam went unsteady for a moment there. Okay, so we have our coleslaw ready, and our, looking at my timer, our jackfruit should be ready in a couple minutes as well. So we will go check it. I'm just gonna put this mayo aside for now so we don't have it in the way. Okay, let me stir my barbecue sauce. Okay. And I'm going to check my jackfruit again. I think it's probably ready. Oh yeah. So hopefully you can see in there. See how it's brown now and it's very dry. Oh, I turned off. I need that 5 more minutes. Let me keep my oven on. You can see it's pretty dry. So I'm going to take that over to the stove and we're going to add our barbecue sauce to it now. Hold on, sorry about that. What's going on?
This thing has gone into rogue mode.
The steady cam again has gone non-steady. Glenn called it rogue mode.
It's our borrowed Steadicam, so we're just trying to get it to work.
There we go. So you can see how this is really dried up. And it's very separate and it smells amazing.
Looks amazing.
It is so good. And again, you know, that's the extra time I took to dry it out in the oven. Makes a huge difference. So I'm just kind of stirring it around to make sure there's no big clumps of the rub. And I'm moving it all to the middle because it's time to add my sauce to it. So I'm going to give my sauce another stir. That looks good. Going to taste it again, make sure it tastes good. It's hot now. Yeah, I don't need to do anything to that. That tastes great. So in the recipe, I think I said 2/3 of a cup. Sometimes I make it sloppier, you know, more barbecue. Sometimes I make it less barbecue. So it's really personal preference. A lot of people just put a couple tablespoons of sauce in it, like that much. If I do start there and move it around, I'll just give you an idea of what it looks like. I like it a lot saucier, so I'm going to put more. But again, it's personal preference. If this was something you ate before you went vegan, then you probably have a personal preference for how saucy it is. And you can see, even though I've put the sauce in it, it still is very defined. The little bits of jackfruit are still very pulled pork looking. You can see even some pieces coming out. Now, I still think that needs a little more sauce. So I'm going to add a little bit more because I like it saucy. I think that'll do. I just do this on the cookie sheet because I don't want to mess another dish. I don't want to have to clean more. Picnic, I'm getting ready for a picnic. You know, I don't want to add to my chores. So I just do it all on here. You can see there's one of the seeds, I think, but it got down to nothing. So I'm just going to leave it there. I miss a seed here and there. And I'm going to again spread it out. And we're going to put this back in the oven for another 5 minutes. I can go to the oven and I'll be right back. Keep that there. Okay, that's in the oven. And so we have about 5 minutes. I am going to toast the sandwich bun. So I said in the recipe that I like a pretty firm, this is ciabatta bread that's been made into a roll. I like something really firm like that. If you use something like a hamburger bun, it's a little too soft, and I just find it kind of breaks apart when you get the coleslaw and the jackfruit on there. So this is going to hold up to that real well. I'm going to go and pop it in the toaster for a couple seconds. Warm it up. Okay. So that is in getting ready. And then the only other components to my dish, so I have my jackfruit in the oven and my coleslaw all made. And I like to add a couple toppings to mine. Some people add sweet pickles, which I like that sometimes, but I also like to pickle my own vegetables. So I have onions and jalapenos pickled and ready to go. So I'm going to grab those and I'll be right back. Here they are. So I need to grab a fork. I'll be right back with that. But I've pickled these red onions and these jalapenos. Can you get those? With the recipe that I put on the recipe flyer. So it's basically grapefruit juice, orange juice, lime juice, vinegar, a little cumin, and bay leaf. And I made these probably 2 days ago and they taste great, but they last for a couple weeks in the fridge because that's very strong acid and acid lasts a long time. So they're great. My husband puts them on all sorts of sandwiches he makes. Okay, so those are ready to go. And I'm going to go grab the bread and we'll set up the sandwich. Toasted perfectly, yum. And let me go grab that jackfruit and I'll be right back. Oh man, Kathy, I wish you were here and could smell this.
I wish I were too.
Taste it.
I wish
I
I
should
could eat
drive
it.
by your house and drop it off. Okay. So we have our jackfruit here. And again, if you had just taken the jackfruit and thrown the barbecue sauce on it and heated it up in the microwave, it would have been pretty good. But taking that little extra time to do the rub and letting it dry out a little takes it to great. And this is enough, I think, for about 4 sandwiches. My cameraman worked hard, so I'm going to put a lot on it for his lunch. Is that a good amount, cameraman? Okay. He's yesing. Hopefully, he didn't get dizzy when he said yes. And then we'll put a little of our coleslaw. A bit more. Cameraman likes a lot of coleslaw too. Oops. And then I have my pickled vegetables, and he loves his onions.
Ooh, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
God, they're so good. They're really, really delicious. And again, wouldn't use my fingers. See, that's the advantage of doing this in my home. I can touch my food a little more. I would not use my fingers if I was cooking for you, Kathy.
That's a lot of
There
help.
we go. And there we have our delicious sandwich.
Yum.
Yay. I wish you could taste it. I'm gonna eat an
I wish I
onion.
could too.
It's so good. So
Amazing.
I'm gonna eat on camera. The jackfruit, again, putting it in the oven, it gives it more bite. It's like if I just ate it out of the jar, it's kind of like, I mean, artichoke's the closest thing I can say, but it doesn't have a lot of like little dried bits. Like, again, when you ate meat, there are dried bits, there are lean bits, there are fatty bits, and putting it in the oven does all of that. And adding the coleslaw to the sandwich just makes it so much more delicious, I think. So, cameraman. There you go. My cameraman can have his lunch while he's sitting in the camera like that. So that is barbecue jackfruit. Does anybody out there have questions about it before we go on to another recipe?
Oh, actually, somebody asked if you could use corn tortillas and make it into a taco.
You absolutely could. So corn tortillas, flour tortillas, make a burrito, lettuce wraps, make a lettuce wrap.
Yeah, she was suggesting like a lettuce wrap with a Korean barbecue lettuce wrap or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another good idea, Kathy, is if you don't want to make your own barbecue sauce, you could use Korean barbecue sauce too. And that would give it a slightly different flavor. The other thing I've done is just make some quinoa or some brown rice and just put it on there along with more vegetables like some broccoli and some carrot, maybe just steamed or roasted, whatever energy level I have after my full-time work. And put that in a bowl. It's great as a bowl too. So lots of usage.
Yeah,
for
that's
the-
what's so great about jackfruit is that it will assume all the flavors of whatever sauce you put on it, right? So you can,
Yeah, it's such a versatile vegetable. I think we're only starting to use it and really starting to explore all the ways to use it. The other thing people use instead of jackfruit is mushroom. You can do the same exact recipe using mushrooms like lion mane, or even just, you know, button mushrooms or whatever. You would just cut them into, you know, a shredded pork kind of shape. And then I would saute them to get all the water out of them, and then pick up where I left off. Put a little rub on them, put them in the oven, dry them out really nice, and then add the barbecue sauce. And that works really well too.
sounds yummy too. I guess people could use soy curls too if they wanted to.
Yeah, soy curls is another really amazing, you know, fake meat that we use. It's basically just soybeans, so it's somewhat processed. It's processed a little more than tofu for those who don't like processed food, but it's not overly processed. It's just soybean, and so it doesn't have a lot of additives in it that people tend to like to avoid. So great ideas, all of them.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move over to our chickpea salad?
Ooh, yum, yum.
Nothing coming?
I think so. So the brands of the jackfruit, did you have preferences for which brands?
The two I can swear by are the one, Trader Joe's.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is Trader Joe's brand. They've had it for months. It doesn't appear to be seasonal. So I think you can get it year round at Trader Joe's. And then Kathy, was the picture of the other brand on the, I might not have put it there.
I don't think so. We had the kelp seasoning picture, but we didn't have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at H Mart, I want to say it has an A, but I can't come up with the brand right now. But again, the most important thing is right there, in brine. You don't want the in syrup or the ripened jackfruit. You want the in brine one.
Okay.
That's the big thing on that. Anything else out there?
Not seeing anything in the Q&A, so I think.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our chickpea salad then. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab a few things from the fridge. Okay. So here we have chickpeas. I made mine from scratch because it's the most economical. I tend to make beans over the weekend sometimes, Sunday or Monday morning or Monday night or Sunday morning. And then I have beans for the whole week and I do different things with them. Chickpeas are super versatile. So chickpea salad is one of my favorite ways, but I use them a lot in Indian food that I make. I throw them in salads. I dry them in the oven and make chickpea, roasted chickpeas. They get hard, almost like a nut, but they're super healthy. You don't have nearly the fat that a nut would have. They're very high protein. They're one of my favorite beans. So I am going to grab a spoon and I'll be right back. I ran out of spoons already. I don't know where I did. So what I've done here, these chickpeas have been chopped up. And I usually just use my knife to chop things pretty fast. But you can also use those chopper things. I have one.
We had a question here about, do you peel your chickpeas?
No, I don't bother. Some people do because you get a smoother texture. But I think especially for this fake tuna salad, these little bits of the skin, like right there, these little bits, almost make a flake like fish would have a flake. So I like to leave the skins on for this. The only time I've ever taken the skins off is to make hummus. And I find it a total waste of time. I actually prefer my hummus with some texture. So I leave the skins on for that as well.
And somebody's asking, I don't know if she meant, were you using a cookbook? I don't think you've written one as far as I know, but she's saying, do you have a cookbook? But I think you're just creating these yourself.
Maybe someday I'll do cookbooks. There's so many cookbooks out there though. If you have a favorite type of food, oh, if I showed you my cookbook collection, you'd be like, oh my goodness, you should save your money. No. And Glenn's like, you bought another cookbook? I like reading them. I almost never make the recipes, but I think that's how I developed like a lot of the recipes I made from scratch, was reading people's ideas, and going to cooking school helps. But I just like reading about it. It's like reading blogs.
Yeah.
And I like supporting vegan chefs, so I love buying their cookbooks.
For sure.
So if there's some kind of food you're interested in, I probably know a great cookbook I can recommend. So again, I use a knife to try to get this flaky. But if you have one of these choppy things, these work really well too for this. So whatever works for you. I like the little choppy thing if I'm being lazy. Again, whatever. Now, this is another recipe that is do what you would do with what, if you ate tuna salad growing up, just make it like you made it growing up, but use chickpeas instead of tuna. And I'm going to give you one other secret ingredient. This stuff. Do I have it on? There. So this stuff is made by Maine Coast Sea Vegetables. That's it. I'm like, seafood, that doesn't sound right. Maine Coast Sea Vegetables. This is gold. If you want something to taste fishy, clam chowder made with mushrooms instead of clams, tuna salad, whatever. There's banana blossom fried fish. This stuff makes it fishy. You smell it, it smells like the sea. I'm gonna put some in my hand. It looks, can you get that? Thank you. Looks kind of funky. All it is kelp that's been dried and ground into a powder. And it smells like fish. In my hand, there's no fish in it. It's just seaweed. And seaweed is so healthy for us, especially people who don't use iodized salt. I'll let that camera come back. If you don't use iodized salt, sea vegetables add iodine to our diet. And so as I'm going to put a little more in there. I just eye it. I think my recipe probably calls for a teaspoon. When I develop recipes, I measure everything and I figure out my proportions, but then when I make them again, I never do that. I'm going to smell this. Yeah, it totally smells like tuna fish right now, people. And it's this stuff. You got to get it. I buy it online because I buy a lot of sea vegetables. So I go to Maine Coast and buy it there. But I've seen it in New Seasons, and I'm sure other stores have it as well. So really good stuff. It adds a little salty flavor. A teaspoon has 105 milligrams of sodium, which is not a ton of sodium for this whole. This is going to be like 6 servings of salad. So 6 sandwiches, that's not much sodium at all. And I usually don't add more salt. So this is a very low sodium dish as well. Has a little bit of fiber, nothing else really. It's almost no calories. So really cool stuff. Now you add your veggies just like you would. I add a lot of extra veggies because I just like my veggies and I like my fiber. I have carrot, celery, and I put quite a bit of onion in it because we like onion, but my neighbors don't like onions. So if I was making this for my neighbors, hi neighbors, I would leave the onion out, but this will probably just be what Glenn and I eat for lunch this week. So after he eats it, oh, the jackfruit sandwich is gone, people. I looked over, I'm like, well, I guess he does not need chickpea salad for lunch because he ate a jackfruit sandwich. Okay. So again, it's whatever combo you grew up eating is what you want to do. My mother-in-law made the best tuna salad. I didn't eat it very long because I became vegetarian about 6 months after knowing her, back when I was 17 years old. But she added apple. So I often chunk up apple the same size as my other vegetables and add it in there. And it adds just that little bit of sweetness.
That sounds really good.
It's so good. You have to try it, Kathy.
Yeah.
It is delicious. So I'm just stirring this up really well. I'm going to add the same things I added to my coleslaw. We're not eating these the same day, so they'll taste different. But I like a little celery seed on my tuna salad, no tuna salad. And I like dill weed. My mother, well, her dad was Swedish. So I was gonna say my mom must have used a lot of dill weed because I put it in everything. So it's probably her dad being Swedish gave me that love of dill. Okay, I have this all perfect. Now, sometimes I just add a little EVOO, olive oil, and vinegar to this, red wine vinegar, and just have it over a salad just like that. Some greens. But this time I'm going to make it for a sandwich. So I'm going to go back to my mayo and add my mayo. And I tend to do this when I make a batch of mayo. I make a couple things with it, so I use it all up. And then I leave a little bit behind if we need mayo for other things during the week. That mayo lasts about a week in the fridge, about 5 days. I wouldn't go much longer than that. I'm pretty big on food safety, so I tend to be pretty conservative, but there's some funny memes online with what people eat and how long they eat it when it's been in their fridge. I would never eat it that long. There's a guy I follow, he's actually a finance guy, and he used to drive his husband crazy because he would eat stuff that's been in the refrigerator for a crazy amount of time. So I do not do that. So I recommend about 5 days for the mayo. And it shouldn't separate, but if it does, you can just whip it up again in your blender. There we go. Let me go get a roll. And I'll layer that on. These are the rolls. You want to pull that back for me, bro? Oh. These are the rolls that I'm using. These just New Seasons. They make them right there. They're a little pricey, but compared to going out for dinner or out for lunch, they're, a lot less than that. So I like to splurge a little bit on things I don't make at home, like bread. I make it sometimes, but not very often. And I am just going to cut this very carefully so I don't cut my hand. And we got our nice, I usually make this, frankly, on a sandwich bread, like a whole grain bread. And I would normally cut some tomato and lettuce and put it on, but it's delicious. And I hope you try it because it's really, really delicious. And you can make a very similar, oops, sorry, Rogue gimbal. Is it back? There we go. You can make a really similar salad with tofu, not the silken tofu that I showed you, but regular tofu that comes in a block. Let me grab one so you know what I mean. Am I out of tofu? Can't be true. There. There we go. So this is what I mean when I say a block tofu. You can take this tofu, and I use a potato masher, and I get it to a texture like egg would be, and do the same thing without the seaweed, and you'll get an eggless salad.
Does it have
So
to
if
be
you want-
extra firm or can it be any other firmness?
I wouldn't use soft. I would go medium, firm, or extra firm.
Okay.
They all work. And by the masher I'm talking about is the one that has the little holes in it, or you can just cut it up into very fine cubes, or you can use your hands and just kind of crumble it up into the dish. All of those things work. And to make it eggy, there's something called black salt. And I'm going to grab it because it's not black, and show you what it looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have any in a package, but you can get this online. It's called black salt, but you can see it's kind of pink. And so it's very fine. Let me get a 2 cents so I can show you. It's a very, very fine powder. You can see that. Super fine powder. And it smells like eggs. It smells like sulfur. And you just put a very little bit in your tofu. It's great in tofu scramble as well. And it gives it that eggy flavor. So there's a brand, Toby's makes egg salad, an eggless salad out of tofu. And I think a little teeny 4-ounce container costs maybe $7. And it's amazing, but it's very high in fat. And it's very expensive. And you can make, you know, I get this Simple Truth, I think must be Fred Meyer's brand. I think this is $1.49. The mayo I made probably cost me, for all that mayo I made, that's about $1.50 for the tofu and a couple more cents for the other things I made. So you can make egg salad for, you know, $3. They'll last you for days. That you might pay $7 for the Toby's, maybe even more. So that's another thing you can make, just like the chickpea salad, but make egg salad. So that's another fun thing to do.
Yeah, black salt's amazing the way it makes it taste like eggs.
Yeah, and it smells really potent. And that's why I have it in a very tight fitting lid. But it smells so much like eggs that my husband doesn't really even like it. He thinks it's like kind of weird and too close. And he's like, don't use that. So I only use that when I'm making it for myself because I really enjoy it. It reminds me of egg. You can also put black salt in your mayo. And it's really, really good added to mayo because of course mayo has egg. And so a little black salt amps it up and makes it a little more like real mayo. Again, I don't do that because my husband doesn't really love it, but most people really love the black salt. All my friends who are not vegan all think it tastes great and like it when I put it in things. So I highly recommend that as well. Made me think of something. Oh, the other salads I mentioned. I think I mentioned them in the sheet. Pasta salad, potato salad, same thing. Use your mayo recipe, make it your own, make it the way you used to make it, and you're not going to miss all those foods that you grew up with and loved for picnics or July 4th celebrations or whatever it was. So all of those are within reach. And if you have any questions about veganizing something, throw them out to Kathy. She'll share them with me, and I'm happy to talk about veganizing anything.
Yeah.
I really haven't found anything. I'm sure there's something out there. I haven't eaten meat so long, but there really is very few things. There are very few things that you can't veganize these days. And so many things are available to us. So it's really, compared to when I became a vegetarian years and years ago, I remember we didn't have anything. It was like, just give up meat and figure out the rest. There was like one cookbook when I became vegetarian. So, and now, like I said, I have a library full.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Any questions out there, Kathy?
Not up there at the moment. I was going to ask you if you were going to, just had a few questions about your chocolate chip cookie recipe that you have on there. So would you you were using Just Egg or Bob's Red Mill as an egg replacer? Can you use flax seeds or chia seeds for that, or do those not work?
Yeah, you can. I just don't find they work as well. I really prefer the Just Egg. There's also a brand that Trader Joe's has now called Simply Egg.
Okay.
I personally have not tried it, but I've talked to people and they say it's working fine. It's brand new. And the Bob's Red Mill works really, really well too. But I think what I don't like about the flaxseed is it doesn't distribute well throughout the cookies. Even when you grind that flaxseed a lot. So the way you use flaxseed as an egg replacer is you grind it up. So it's like a powder and you mix it with water. And then you use equal amounts of that for a volume of an egg. So an egg is about 3 tablespoons. So you take 3 tablespoons of that flaxseed mixture. And I just don't think it gives you the same lift to the cookie.
Okay.
I think the cookies end up flatter and I don't think they taste quite as good either. But that's just me. It will work. I just don't think the product is quite as good. And frankly, that chocolate chip cookie recipe is amazing. I have the pickiest non-vegan friend, and she'll probably watch this and she'll say, "You called me picky." I did not use her name, so she doesn't know it's her. But she's super picky. Hey, some of us are. We all have our reasons. And she's not vegan, and she loves those cookies. I give them to her. She calls them cookie balls because I give them to her frozen. And especially during COVID, when we weren't like going in people's houses, I give her, cookies in the frozen balls, and she cooks them off at home, and she loves them and thinks they taste wonderful. So not missing anything, even though, some people think they're giving up something being vegan. I honestly do not feel that way at all.
So why do you freeze them before you cook them? If you don't, do you have to freeze them before you cook them?
I highly recommend it. If you don't, so vegan butter doesn't have the same properties as cow butter. It's really close, and the Miyoko's vegan butter tastes amazing. That's another thing. My friends who eat butter are perfectly happy eating Miyoko's butter. But if you don't freeze the cookie, vegan cookies tend to spread and get thin. Now, I like a cookie with a little more depth. Like I want it to be that 1/2 inch, perfectly round, beautiful cookie that, they look very much like a fancy, what you buy in Whole Foods or something. And they taste really amazing. So the freezing is just that little bit that helps them. Freezing baked goods is also a trick of professional bakers. It helps the flavors meld and become even better. So freezing them just makes them taste better too.
Well, good to know that. Yeah. So,
Okay.
anybody else out there have any questions? If they want to, just somebody thanking you.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to talk about one thing. Yeah, we're doing okay. I think this will probably be the last thing, but July 4th, growing up, we always had s'mores. And s'mores, when I became vegetarian, there were no marshmallows that I could eat because marshmallows have gluten or gelatin in them, which is made from animal products. So now we don't eat. Not only do we have marshmallows, we have choices of marshmallows. Trader Joe's, these are seasonal. So you'll see them right around now. And these are the big marshmallows for toasting. And then in the fall, Traders will change to the mini marshmallows for putting in hot chocolate. And then the original, what I think of as the original vegan marshmallow is Dandies. And I assumed Trader was getting theirs from Dandy, but I don't think they are because the ingredients are well, they're almost identical. Yeah, actually, they're pretty identical. But I swear the Trader Joe's toast better over a campfire. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But those are what I use for marshmallow. When talked about chocolate, because until the past few years, most of the chocolate vegans could eat was dark chocolate. And frankly, I never really liked dark chocolate before I became vegan. I always wanted milk chocolate. And that's what I still think of with s'mores. And there's a couple great milk options now. This one, that on there, is from a company in Salem. So just 30 miles south of Portland. You can go to this chocolate factory and get a tour. And the guy who owns it is so nice. I've met him a couple times when I've gone in there, and his products are really, really delicious. Food Fight also carries this. So if you don't want to make it down to the factory, you can go to Food Fight and get Chomp chocolate. And this is a milk chocolate, and he uses cashew to make the milk. And then if you have a nut allergy, this is a brand new product. I started seeing it less than 2 months ago, I think I got this one at Safeway, but I believe Freddy's also carries it. And this is made with oat milk. It does have almond, so if you have a tree nut allergy, it is not an option for you. But it's oat and almond, and it's really, really good. And both these products melt really well. And then the final component of s'mores, as all good Girl Scout knows, all good Girl Scouts know, is graham cracker. And that's actually the trickiest part. Marshmallows are easy now for vegans, and milk chocolate is easy for vegans, but graham crackers can be tricky because most graham crackers have honey in them. And vegans don't eat honey. If you want to know why, I'm sure Kathy has an article on her website where you can Google it and find out why. But that'll be the tricky part. These are from Keebler, which are, if you get an app like Is It Vegan, people research this down to the sugar. A lot of non-organic sugar has something called bone char that's used in the manufacturing process. It's not in the end result, but it does use bones from animals to make the sugar extra white. And therefore, most vegans don't want to eat that. And so you can find organic graham crackers, but they're very hard to find. So Keebler brand is accidentally vegan. So that's what I would recommend if you can find them. Trader Joe's normal graham crackers have honey, but they have a special one that comes out right around now that doesn't. So you could check for that as well. But this might be your hardest thing. And then the other thing that's accidentally vegan, I believe, and always double check because these companies change things and they might be vegan and then a month later it might not be. But the, I forget what they're called, but they're a graham cracker, Keebler again, the little elves, with chocolate on the outside. And those are, were accidentally vegan last time I checked.
Chris, I just got another question. I guess I missed it, but when you were still on the cookie, the chocolate chip cookie recipe, they're asking if you could make the cookie dough and add it to vegan ice cream, like cookie dough ice cream. Would that work?
Yeah, it would actually work really well. I haven't done it myself, but there's nothing in it that can't be added. I'd probably use the Bob's Red Mill instead of the Just Egg, because Just Egg is made to be a cooked product. Bob's Red Mill is not, so it would be perfectly fine. But I would probably, just for extra safety, I would use the Bob's Red Mill.
Good to
I know some people have a safety issue with flour because there's a possibility of contaminated flour. So I would probably not serve it to young children or adults who have any kind of compromised immune system. So read up about flour if you're gonna do that. There are ways to get around that. You can do things to the flour to make sure that it's 100% safe. So I would do that too.
And there are alternative flours too. Maybe, I know there were some safety issues with regular flour, but maybe some of the, like chickpea flour or something, maybe.
Yeah, and for those gluten-free folks out there, the Bob's 1-to-1 mix works great with that cookie mix. It's called Bob's 1-to-1 baking mix.
Mhm.
And you can just replace the flour in that cookie recipe with that to get gluten-free cookies.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think that's all I had, but I'd stick around and take questions if there's any more, Kathy, or I think we're done.
No, that was wonderful. I just wish we could eat the stuff now.
I know, I'll knock at your door.